good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. My name is Professor Yael Mishael at the Faculty of Agriculture, Department of Soil and Water, and I'm also the director of the Sustainability Center of Hebrew University of Jerusalem. We are here today to discuss the future of sustainable foods, and I would like to introduce Professor Nachmias. Hi, Kobe, how are you doing?
Hi, Yael. It's a pleasure to be here in Nexus. This is my second time in a Nexus event, and I'm very excited to be here.
So Professor Nachmias is also the president of Future Meat. Kobe, what challenged you, or what kind of challenge were you addressing when you started working on Future Meat?
So first, let me just introduce myself. So my name is Kobe Nachmias. I'm the director of the Center for Bioengineering at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. And I'm also the founder of several biotechnology startups. One of them is Tissue Dynamics, that was featured 2 years ago. And the second one is Future Meat Technologies, the world's fastest growing cultured meat company. So when you ask me about the challenge that Future Meat Technologies is coming to address is the fact that we need to grow the next generation of food supply. The coming generations cannot eat the same food that we can. The world has really reached peak meat. You know, we tend to think about peak oil, where the world's production of oil is going to cease and what that's going to do to our economy. Well, we are at peak meat right now. We are using every single acre and every single gallon of water we have today to produce the meat that you and I are eating in the supermarket, whether it's chicken or beef. The problem is that we're doing that while using 77% of the world's arable land, about 25% of the world's fresh water supply. And more than that, the production of this meat produces between 10 to 14% of the global carbon emissions. This is happening at a time where the demand for meat is expected to rise. The world population is growing, and massive urbanization, specifically in Asia and Africa, is driving ever-increasing demand. Demand for meat is going to increase by 50% at a time where industry can no longer make it. It's done. We don't have any more space. We don't have any more water. So if we want our kids and our grandkids to live in a world where they can actually have quality protein that is safe and healthy, then we need to fundamentally change the way we produce meat. And this is what brought me to found Future Meat Technologies with the good help of our friends in Tyson Foods and ADM and other large corporations across the United States.
Thank you. And what is the technology based on? So explain to us in simple words, and how is it unique in comparison to other technologies that address the same issue that you described?
So when you're trying to make meat, essentially it means growing animals today, right? You're taking a baby cow, and that baby cow is grazing in pasture on about 2 acres. And then it takes them about 10 to 12 months to reach a certain weight where you can essentially harvest the animal. You slaughter the animal, and then you have about 400 kilograms of meat. It's a very inefficient process. So for every 7 to 10 kilograms or pounds of plant protein, you're getting 1 pound of meat at retail. A different way of doing it is essentially getting cells from the animal and getting cells once, and then growing these cells to produce only the muscle and the fat that you want, right? Because you don't really need to make a liver, a gut, or a brain. All you want to eat is the meat, right? This is growing the cells can be a very efficient process if you're using precision fermentation. And the conversion rate can be close to 1-to-1. So in Future Meat Technologies, for every pound of plant protein, we can make about 1 pound of animal protein. So it's a very efficient conversion process. And it can be very effective in generating the meat that we like. So the initial estimates talk about cultured meat. This is the technology where you take the cells and growing it to make the meat. Talk about this technology being able to produce the same amount of meat with 90% less carbon emissions, 99% less land, and 95% less freshwater supply. So it's a significant change. And if you look at the current predictions, the prediction is that because the demand is going to increase and this entire industry can't rise to meet the demand, it's cultured meat that is going to rapidly increase over the next couple of decades and essentially rise up to meet the challenge of a global protein production.
Thank you. And maybe the most common question that you're asked is, when will we eat? When will we go to the supermarket or order in a restaurant future meat?
So that's a fascinating question. And actually, so Future Meat raised over close to $400 million in the last 4 years. And we're the fastest growing company in this sector. Right now, we are building one of the first large-scale production facilities that is designed to be in the United States. Now, it takes about 2 years to build a large-scale factory. The good thing, though, is that you probably won't have to wait for these entire 2 years, because in April last year, we actually built the first production line of cultured meat in Israel, a production line that can make hundreds of kilograms a day. This means that we can probably get into restaurants a lot faster than we thought, as soon as we can get regulatory approval. So the main challenge right now for Future Meat Technologies is actually getting FDA approval for our products. We predict it's going to be in the beginning of 2023. But prophecy is given to fools, and nobody is a fool in the Future Meat.
Okay, great. I wanted to ask you, how did Hebrew University make it possible? What was its role as a university in helping you reach your goals? So
I have a soft spot for the Hebrew University. Obviously, this is where I am. It's the university that was founded by Albert Einstein and Sigmund Freud. It's the oldest university in Israel. And when I got an invitation more than a decade ago to leave Harvard Medical School, where I was a junior faculty, and actually move to the Hebrew University and establish the Center for Bioengineering, we jumped on this opportunity. There are very few opportunities in your life where you can actually build something new. Now, the university gave us an incredible amount of freedom to build the bioengineering program. We brought Boston Scientific from the United States that I knew from Minnesota days, and started a new biodesign program. The biodesign program brought clinicians and business students together with engineers that we developed, and launched medical device startups into the system. So we got 7 different medical device startups launched just in the last 7 years. The first ones are already getting FDA approval and are being sold in Europe and the United States. I think it's a remarkable opportunity to be, I would say neck to neck with Stanford in our output. And then for my lab has received a lot of funding from the European Commission and from amazing foundations in the United States. And this gave us a lot of freedom, a lot of opportunity to discover new technologies. And for my lab, I launched 2 companies. One of them is Tissue Dynamics. We actually won a competition 2 Nexus ago. It's a drug development company that was recently selected as one of the top 5 organ-on-chip companies in the world, doing animal-free drug development. And then Future Meat Technologies that I founded just 4 years ago. The university is giving me the freedom to actually be a significant partner in these companies, both raising the money, raising the capital, and being a chief scientific officer in them. So the fact that you can actually do that is very, very unique in Israel. I wouldn't be able to do that in Harvard. I would not be able to do that at MIT. And it's really one of the unique ecosystems of this startup nation.
Great. Thank you, Kobi, for sharing that. I have another question. You kept mentioning my lab in the Freedom. And so going back to the bench and to your lab, can you recall a moment, an experiment, a result that super excited you, that was pure scientific and obviously led to these two major companies and other inventions and papers and so on, but maybe that one single or a few single moments that were the most exciting?
So this is the future of food, right? Not the future of drug development. That's, I think, another session. But there are two moments in the Future Meets history that were really, really interesting. The first one actually did not happen at the university. It happened in Boston when I was doing my sabbatical at MIT. I got a phone call from an investor. They asked me, what did I think about cultured meat? You know, Mark Post just made his first burger, and they asked me what I thought about it, and I told them I thought it was probably the stupidest idea I've ever heard. And the reason is that I know what the industry can do. You know, you can make a kilogram of biomass for about $200, $300 per kilogram, but that's about it. Cells, when they grow, it doesn't matter if it's, you know, cow cells or, you know, lamb cells or chicken cells, they all make ammonia. And that ammonia, you know, gets to a certain level and kills everything. So it's a very inefficient process of growing biomass like that. So they were pretty upset, you know, but I had the opportunity of sitting down next to the Charles River and drinking my latte. And I was thinking about friends in Flying Spark, a company that is growing fly larvae, and they can grow this protein for about $1 a kilogram. And I was, why do fly larvae, which are tiny, tiny, essentially worms, right? Yeah. 6,000 cells. Why are they so efficient while single cells are not efficient? And the reason struck me. It's because they have a liver. They actively remove the ammonia all the time. So, you know, a couple of napkins later, and I sketched out a system that would enable to actively remove the ammonia and rejuvenate, recycle the raw materials again and again and again, making the process cost efficient. And essentially, I brought this napkin to Yesu. And we filed the first patent for the company, and that was like a eureka moment. Another moment that is kind of different was when, after I met the CSO of Tyson Foods in Israel, the CEO of their new ventures arm came to visit, and he came to Jerusalem, and we took him to Machne Yehuda restaurant. So, if you know it, it's like a noisy restaurant. It's like Saf Granot's restaurant, right? And after we ate, I asked one of the chefs, who is a good friend of mine, to bring a burning piece of coal to the table. Okay. And then I took a small vial with a few drops of cultured chicken fat, and I would put it on the burning coal in the middle of the table, and the entire restaurant smelled like grilled chicken. So but then like that. Yeah, and the waiters and people from the other tables came in and asked, "What are you doing?" And we were trying to tell them exactly what we were doing. But that was it. That was exactly the point where you understand that you have something transformative. It was 2 years later, almost after the initial napkin. But it was really the point where Tyson decided, yes, we're going to invest in the seed of this emerging new company.
Great, great, two true stories. Terrific. And in the few minutes we have left, what would be your take-home message to our audience?
Yeah, I think we are facing a massive transformation in the world today. It's very, very clear that our children are not going to eat the same thing that we did. They can't. And I have 5 kids, all of them young, under the age of 10. And I joke that one of my biggest problems is that their mom is vegetarian. And it means that unless I physically do something, we're going to eat tofu for the rest of our lives. But this is, all joking aside, if we want our children to have as safe and varied diet as we do, we need to fundamentally change food production in the world today. Because one, we're talking about the environment, we're talking about affecting climate change. Reducing carbon emissions is a major aim, but the other thing that can come from cultured meat is releasing massive amount of pasture land. Even in the United States, about 30% of the land is pasture. If you release that land, you can capture dozens of billions of tons of CO2 from the atmosphere. So we're not talking about reduction in carbon emissions. Oh. We're actually talking about carbon capture. Yeah. This would make the entire United States carbon neutral for the next decade. The next decade, giving us enough time to figure out, nuclear fusion, for example. But this is important. This is critical. And cultured meat is definitely one of those technologies. The other thing that we need to recognize is that, one of the things that the pandemic exposed is that meat industry is our soft belly. On one side, there were slaughterhouses essentially closed, and people across the United States did not have meat for months. And it's because, the humid conditions are essentially spreading the viruses incredibly fast, and you shut down slaughterhouses. The second problem is that viruses jump. Coronavirus did not come from meat animals. It probably came from something else, but influenza definitely does. Influenza comes from chickens, and influenza comes from pigs. We know that. So the next pandemic might again come from our protein industry, and this is again an area where cultured meat can dramatically increase the safety of our food supply and our food chains. I'm in all this discussion, I did not mention even once the humanitarian conditions and animal welfare, because as important as they are, and they're incredibly important, they usually don't drive economic decisions. But what should drive economic decisions is that. So food safety, food security, and climate change.
Absolutely. Touching all these so important points, Kobi. Thank you so much. And I think we can end with B'te'avon, right? I mean, that would be the appropriate. And thank you very much. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Yael. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.